moved it because of the contractor thing, so hopefully, and I won't make y'all come back out. So that'll be a Zoom and you can kind of just log in where you are. We made some room for some really good presenters on information that can really get you your project completed. Then we also will have, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, can you repeat that last part? Cause I didn't.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some really good, yeah.
But what did you say after that?
I said, we have some, I was a little tongue tied. You was listening, right? Hey, y'all. We have some really good presentations to help you get your projects completed. So that will be a good resource. So I would rather them tell you more about it than me mess it up. It's like, that ain't what he did. So I don't wanna mess it up, so I'm gonna leave it. But we are gonna have, small business development center come and talk to us about the small business. We're gonna have Chester Community Economic Improvement come, and they're gonna talk to you about credit and about the first time home buyer program. You say, well, I'm not buying a home. What does that mean? But somebody will be buying your home. And you will be able to tell them about this program because they can get, I saw one person got up like $20,000 towards those closing costs. So the program itself gives you 10, but with the right bank, they might give you another 10. But I'm gonna leave that to the presenter. I don't wanna mess nothing up. But I just wanted to at least give y'all an idea of the information that we've added. And again, I told you guys are the pioneers. This is the first class. So as we're going through, we're gonna grow it, we're gonna build it. And even when we get to our construction site, and if we're missing something, we will come back and do another Zoom. So again, be mindful of what you're learning, what you think you're not learning. So when we get to that final survey, you can actually tell us, you know what, I kind of heard this, but I need a little more, or I need some clarity. So whatever it is that you think you need that may not have been shared or may not have been clear, please kind of write that down. If you look in them, you got some blank sheets in your behind each chapter. Make a note of it so that you don't forget, come to your mind. And again, our presenters are people that present or work in these fields. So it's them sharing their expertise. So we won't get into any debates or anything like that. If you need some clarity and it's not really clear, you can make a note of it and we can address it at a later time. If you're like, no, I went to the DMV and they closed at 3. Well, that day was a holiday and you know, we're not gonna do all that. So just be mindful that they're here to just share their expertise, just to give you an overview. When this class is done, I want everybody to say, oh yeah, I heard about that. You don't have to teach it because you're not gonna be able to teach a class, but you'll be able to say, I heard about that. So that's what the whole purpose of this class is. So just please make notes if you have any questions, because when we get to the end of this, if there's anything, we wanna go ahead and share that up. So the class, graduation ceremony. Everybody can bring a guest with them for the graduation ceremony. It will be in this building on another floor. They have like an auditorium. Oh, we're gonna have no signs. Y'all gonna feel special and stuff. And Power Home Remodel and giving you guys a parting gift. So we thank them for that. So just be mindful, you can bring someone with you. We will need to know their names by the day. So security. We got security. Let y'all feel protected. Y'all can focus. So any questions before we get started?
I didn't get a package.
You didn't get a package.
All right. I can table one back here. Oh, sorry.
Okay, awesome.
All
All right, we're gonna go ahead. That is all my to-do list. Again, what we'll do is once the food come in, then we actually have time today. Actually, take a lunch, take a pause. Y'all can eat and then get back into it. So, all right, our first presenter will be Mr. Gary, and we want to thank him for coming in. Give him a hand.
I gotta stand up or?
You can do whatever you like.
I'm Gary Williams. I'm a real estate, I say professional, from Berkshire Hathaway Fox Builders. Been a real estate broker for several years. I've been a realtor since 2006. Worked originally with Weicker Realtors in Philadelphia. Then I migrated to the great state of Delaware and became a realtor out there, associate broker. Then I came back to Chester and opened up an office over town at 632 Avenue of the States, where I have a team of realtors that work with me in Delaware and Pennsylvania and Maryland. So without further ado, I've been asked to give you some pointers on leasing, managing, and selling your property. So I'm gonna pretend that y'all guys already own your property. Y'all got multiple properties. You know, you got two.
Claim
You got
it,
three.
claim it.
You got four.
Claim it.
I mean, you got five. You got commercial property, you got four. Yeah.
The offering now.
Yeah. Got a couple over there, you got a couple too, you know? Back in a row, how many you want?
How many you got?
How many you want? Three? That's it?
That's all the properties
Okay.
you want? Eight.
Eight.
Okay.
Everyone, eight. I got
They
y'all.
got
Y'all want a couple
that.
too?
Yeah.
You know, you said, why not? Yeah, that's a problem. Do you know how to manage them?
Wait, huh?
Oh, that's what it is, huh? You know about leases, you know about application, you know how to pick the right people for your space. Who got eight? Nah, Miss Irvin says she got eight. Miss Irvin, do you know how to pick the right people for your space? Are you renting them out or are they all vacant? Hello?
They're all gonna be rented out.
They all rented out to who? Who's renting them? Your friends and family that is not gonna pay you?
It's not the
How much do you want for each one of them?
working.
Yeah, absolutely. Say it again?
It's gonna be the working population.
Working population, so they ain't no friends and family then?
No friends and family.
Oh, no friends and family, okay. So that's who you rent it out to, working population? So how do you know they working?
I'm gonna do a background check to make sure that they've had,
Okay,
secure employment for
okay.
at least 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Through the same employer.
You gonna do that across the board, so we don't have no fair housing, problems? Across the board, you sure? Cause if you do one person differently and that person gets wind of it that you did something differently, now we got an issue. So you're gonna do that fairly across the board, make sure they got 5 years. Check this out. What if you don't get no tenants? Cause you got that 5-year history. You know, now you got like half of your 8 units vacant because you got a 5-year history claim. I'm not picking on you, but you know what I'm saying?
Let's
So-
answer these questions.
Yes. So you might have to dwindle down and say, you know what? You just got a job. Yeah. You smell good, you look good, you know? I'm gonna give you an opportunity and go from there, because it might not work out for 5 years, you know? So, but that's a good start. Leasing, managing, and selling. And we're talking about finding a tenant. Walking the unit and considering your target tenant. That's what we're talking about, considering your target tenant. Because you might have a tenant that you give an opportunity to, and that might be the tenant from HELL. You know, and how you gonna get them out? You gonna get them out? How you gonna get them out? Court? Oh, okay,
See if they broke any of the rules on the lease.
okay, all right. So
The
let's,
main one that I see that most people break is no smoke.
no smoking, okay,
Yeah.
you just gonna get them out for smoking in your unit. He's paying you good money, he's paying you $1,600, you gonna get him out? For smoking, you're not going to, please,
If I'm
can you
going to
stop
hell,
smoking?
if
Huh?
I'm going to hell, that one, yeah. you
Oh,
gotta go.
okay, oh, so it's more than smoke. He's doing something else in there, selling drugs or something.
Yes. damn
Okay,
property.
damaging your property, okay, gotcha. All right. So, we, did a whole background check on the guy, so, you know, we knew he wasn't gonna do that, but now he's doing it now. That's what you're saying? Like, before we did a full application, got everything in the application, what else? One thing I want to ask y'all, in the application, what y'all gonna, y'all have a written application, right? I have a client that, doesn't do an application. And when I met him, I said, how you select these people with no application? How do you even get the social security number when you want to evict them? Yeah, how do you do all that without an application? Well, I should go by. No, not yet, but I can do it right here. That's what I want to point
That's the whole point.
Yes, yeah. So how do you cause all on this application, I circle each thing you need to know. All right, let me ask you something real quick. I know I ain't getting much time. On the application, what do you think? I'm gonna go down the road. What needs to be on here and I'm gonna check off? On the application,
Your income.
that's good. Go ahead, what else?
Employer name and social.
Employer, that's good. What else?
Background.
Background check, yeah.
Basic social.
Credit card, I mean, not credit card, consumer.
That's on here, yeah, yeah.
You go to section 8, right, you need the housing voucher certificate.
Yep, that's it. That's not on this application, but that's a good one.
Address and over and
There you go, there you go. Cause why you wanna check their former address?
we want to see how, what they've done in the past, in history, and if
Yeah.
they owned, and if they, have some shaky history.
References too. I almost selected a person, you know, they had good, it looked like the application was good, you know, not good, it was okay. I wouldn't go there. And when I went and looked at where they used to live or where they were living at, oh my goodness, I said, no, they don't want my place to look like us. You know what? So, yeah, you definitely gotta look at, what's another one, y'all? Y'all hit like 5 of them. How about pets? You saying you don't want no pets in your 8 units, Mr. Irvin, but now this person got 4 cats. You don't think they're gonna bring those cats that they love with them? You know, but
What about the emotional support?
that's different, that's different. 4 cats ain't emotional support. Yeah, I can see one or two.
Being a landlord, living with something like that, they come with them.
that's a federal law, I believe, so you can't do anything with that.
I think they charge a fee though still.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Who else is going to be living there with?
There you go, that's a bingo, bingo. Cause what if, Hakeem get out of jail, he wanna live with your tail? Now what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Grandchildren and great grandchildren and.
And what if Hakeem is a sex offender? What you gonna do?
He got to go.
Gotta go, he's already in there. You haven't went to the property in like 3 months. Now he's living there. Then what you gonna do?
Then that person broke the lease. If they told me it was only one person,
Oh, okay.
and now you just basically terminated yourself.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, y'all cooking with grease. So we actually talk about marketing. I went on a tangent somewhere else. Sorry.
That's okay.
We talk about marketing your product. So, how you gonna market your product? Your rental product. These are some of the key things you need to do. You need to walk the unit, of course. Consider your target tenant. You know, you're not going to be advertising in Wall Street if you know your tenant works at Walmart. You know, you know what I mean. So you're gonna have to be aware of where your target is. Highlight unique features. What's a unique feature of your rental that you have?
Washer dryer.
Awesome. Okay. Who else got a unique feature?
Two
baths.
2 baths. Ooh, you know that. Yeah. Huge basement, finished basement. How about a big backyard? That's another one. That's another one. And then you don't get food. How about a driveway? Updated appliances. That's cool.
Garage.
Garage. Ooh, I need storage space. And that's extra money too, isn't it? Yes, there you go. And then you want your photos to look professional. You got my friend's wife over there, he's a professional photographer, I'm giving him a plug. He goes across the street from him. You wanna do a high definition photo. And then give a detailed description, not just a one-liner, hey, you know what, great location, near 95. You wanna go into detail, like, hey, you know, 4 bedrooms, you know, 2 bathrooms, you know, big garage, you know, the whole 9 schools, yeah. Go from there.
Restaurants and everything.
And then it costs money though. Zillow kills us as realtors. But you wanna advertise on realtor.com, apartment.com, all of them. Directional signs, if you wanna do an open house, or, you know, if you want, you know, let them know that you, the property's for rent, you wanna, give them on. Yeah. Yeah. Hold multiple open houses. Who loves doing open house? You do? Good luck. I hate them open houses. You can't say, let me ask you something, this is a key question. Can you say, no, you can't come in there? I had this, I'm doing an open house in a triplex in the hood, and this guy came in there, he must have had every inch of smell on it.
Mm.
And I couldn't say, no, you can't come in here. You don't have any money. You're not gonna, how about, he said, yo, he went through the house. I followed him, of course, you know. He went through the house, and as he's leaving, he said, yo, I'm gonna go and get my boss. You know what? He's probably interested in buying this. Now, what if I would have judged him openly? You know what I mean? Because you're gonna judge him no matter what. And then his boss ended up buying a triplex.
Wow.
So, you know, you can't judge a book by its cover, for sure. Engage, potential, like I did, potential tenants or potential people, respond promptly to inquiries. If you don't respond like within the first 30 seconds of somebody inquiries, they won't forget. I respond often. I would respond like, you know, unfortunately, like 10 minutes, hour, or whatever later. They be like, well, what property you talking about? I put in inquiries like 20 properties. What are you talking about? So you try to respond quick, you know, as possible. And be consistent, professional, and in your preparation. You know, if you want to tell somebody, they're gonna ask, you know, I have 17 listings on Market Street, new construction, you know, and people call me, I gotta be motivated and I gotta be on cue when they ask me about these listings, because, you know, my the owner of the development might be trying to prank me, you know what I mean? And he calls me up, says, you know, I'm interested in McMullen Square on Market Street. You know, can you tell me about it? Well, I hate that place, you know what I mean? I can't sell any of those units. So I gotta be on point. Hey, this is the best, you know, in Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, this is the best. You know what I mean? 3 bedrooms, blah, 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 and be able to express. And you guys gonna have to be that same way when people call in reference to your particular unit as well. And I call house units. I don't know why, I just do it. So a unit is a house. Application, what we talked about earlier. I don't have enough of them, but we can pass it and y'all can see what an application looks like.
So I have a question for you. When you start an apartment building and you are renting out, or you're renting from, you looking to rent from somebody, like, you know how you have like a house, it might be a 1-2 family house and you renting. How do you, as a consumer, what do you look for? How do you protect yourself against someone who would just take the money and probably don't pay it and then you left out?
Say that again, Moses, say that again. I'm the landlord, or who am I?
You're the consumer.
I'm the consumer, I'm the one looking for a property.
Right, so you end up renting out
Yep.
a house,
Yep.
right? Like the bottom,
Yep.
the apartment on the bottom. How do you, what do you look for, or how do you protect yourself in a situation like that? Like if you're paying the landlord and they don't end up paying the rent and then you just.
Well, the landlord should be the owner. And so are you saying that? Sublet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You gotta make sure that person that you're giving the money to is really the person that you should be giving the money to. You know, that's happened a lot of times.
That's what I'm saying. So how do you, if you giving it to the person you're supposed to give it to, but they're not paying and you could potentially be kicked out.
Right.
How do you protect yourself from that?
Maybe look on public records to try to see who the actual owner is. You know, and you know this guy and the owner, just try to figure out, well, who are you, you know, renting from, or, you know, who are you working for, to see if even if he's saying he's the property manager, trying to see if that's the person that, maybe talk to somebody in the unit, if it's vacant, you know, it's so many different scammers out there. So
I've seen it.
something like that might be kind of hard, but you want to do your due diligence as a consumer to try to figure out if that's the right person. Because if you don't, you're gonna lose your money.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Is it normal practice for a realtor to ask, someone buying a property
No, it's
to verify their bank account weekly?
Weekly, no, I haven't heard that one. To verify your bank account, bank account weekly?
Yes.
No, I haven't heard that one. Why would they do that? Because they just want to make sure you have a job?
Because they wanted to make sure that the money that they had was still there when they went to close.
So you talking about buying a house or
Buying a
renting a house? Oh, buying a house, the mortgage company can do whatever. I mean, they're the boss until you buy the house. And then, you go from there, but they can ask you, to verify your money. I don't know about
On a
weekly.
weekly basis?
I don't know about, it depends on the mortgage company.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I've heard them ask to verify their, whether or not they still have that money and where they got the money from.
Okay.
Where we at now?
Look at that.
Yeah, how much time? Should have a big clock somewhere. Oh, all right, so how long do I have until?
Let me see what we got. Let's see how many more times you got, how many, let's see what you got.
And then, for the application that I was circulating, I just circled a couple things. It's important that, you get the social security number like we alluded to earlier. The property information, application fee. 20 minutes. Yeah, some people don't collect application fee, but if you, do a credit report, credit check, credit company is gonna charge you, so why wouldn't you, charge, application fee? So it's important to do that. All right. Insurance, is that me?
Is that you?
Yeah,
Go back?
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
back. Okay. Am I going wrong direction?
Yeah, keep going back one more.
I'm not going.
What makes it good possible, yeah. After application, there we go. Yep. Nah, what makes it, you just said it, what makes a good, prospect?
Oh, that, I would always.
Yeah, I think it's going by itself. Yeah. It all depends on where all of this is great, but you might have to dumb it down a little bit. Sometimes, you might not even can check the credit because they don't have a credit score. So then what you do, you really want to rent to them because you got the money. You really want that thing filled. So are you gonna say, all right, you know what, if all the other stuff checked, we might not do, credit, but in a perfect world, you want somebody to have good credit. You want the income to be 3 times to 4 times, more than the rent. I can tell you, I got several units and that ain't the case. And they still paying, but they wanna live there. So, you gotta make that determination for yourself, if the rent is $1,000, what's that mean that needs to be? How much anyway? Right. Stable income, that's important, or if they don't have income, some other source of income, and then the rental history. These are the do's and don'ts. The do's, verify 3 years if you can, or dummy down a little bit. Require references, what we said earlier. I just had a guy rent from me and, he gave me a credit card that he had for a deposit. And I'm like, in my 20 years of experience, I haven't had a credit card. It was a gift card actually, and it had $500 on it. I took it. I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, sir. So, what's in the hood stays in the hood. I took it. I admit to it. I took it. Discuss the reasons for moving and leasing expectations. When you move out, I need you to take your, this guy had a big couch and they already had scratches on it from his cat and stuff like that. I was like, yo, I need you to take that with you when you move out. So, stuff like that, people, this other guy, he had our garage that, we rented out. He had a motorcycle, he had cause he was a mechanic. He had a motorcycle, big truck, some other stuff, metal, he was a sheet metal. Man, it took him a month to move out, but he had to take all the stuff, And then after that, he still left stuff, and I took it to the scrapyard because he left all this metal. So, but you gotta discuss the moving out and lease expectations. Keep the place clean. You don't see any cockroaches now, we don't want no cockroaches later on, you know, so. Negotiate this is the key, if you can negotiate multi-year leases, that's the key. Then you ain't gotta worry about it, 2 years, that's great. Section 8, where my Section 8 man? Section 8 man, yes, sir, here you go. Wanna talk about Section 8? Yeah. Initially, you might not get paid do we have any Section 8 people in here that can clarify that? You might not get paid initially, but when the money starts coming in, then it comes in.
Yeah, you have to pass your inspection. Sure. There's some place called Mid-Right Associates. They come out. They do an
Inspect the unit.
inspection.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Pass that.
Yeah.
You get paid immediately.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, build relationships with, housing authority, with inspectors and all that kind of stuff, so they don't, mess with your money, so to speak.
I'm listening, so.
Marketing, for sale property. When I first started real estate, that's who I dealt with. I dealt with for sale by owners, because they thought they could sell their property. And I'm like, yo, you don't know what you're doing, let me help you out, so half of my business was for sale by owners. And why you needed to hire a guy like me, to get the job done and get you the most money as possible. If you don't know what you're doing, it might cause you, leaving money on the table. So, I would at least get somebody in your corner that knows about real estate as a mentor if you try to sell a property by yourself. Check if tenants are qualified buyers. That's one thing that the sell by owners fail to do. Because most buyers get a pre-approval, or if they got cash, have you verified that they got cash? They're saying they got a cash offer. I just had a deal yesterday. The buyer said, yeah, $375, I got cash. I'm gonna give you cash. I'm gonna give you half up. My client was like, oh, he's gonna give me half, $175,000 in my bank account tomorrow. I said, he ain't nothing like that. What are you talking about? Met him yesterday. He got a pre-approval. Calm and, didn't have the cash, he had a down payment, so we're gonna go through the process. So she still, we still sign everything, but things change once you talk to somebody that's a professional that knows about selling real estate. Do the research on comps. Don't pay too much. This is all about paying too much. If you do the comps, you wanna buy this house that's $100,000, and the comps are saying, hey, the return on investment, which y'all learning about, I'm sure, is only like $250. You don't want to buy that house, that $100,000 house, for too much, because your comp is only at $250. So you got to be careful on pricing it and looking at your comps. Advertising aggressively and highlight unique features. We talked about that earlier when we were renting the space, but that's what you want to do when you're selling the house as well. Leasing and managing your property. We just talked about the return on investment. You want the best tenant you possibly can get. Options, getting a management company. I'm working with a client now. I'm encouraging her. I'm begging her. Let me manage this because this thing is not going well. So, if you can't do it, you need a buffer. And a buffer is somebody in front of the tenants to protect you, because they're gonna come at you no matter what. You need somebody blocking them all the way down and shielding you from them. Because if not, they're gonna come at you and you like, oh, I'm taking a hit. You need somebody to answer that call at 10 o'clock at night when they're calling you, oh, my toilet stopped up and little Bam Bam can't take his dump. I'm like, what? So you need all of that.
Can you have your tenants include that cost? Absorb that cost? If that's a repeated issue?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's in your lease. So you had it, so long as you have, and I got the lease right here. So say for instance, you have a lease and it's not in a lease, then we might have Houston, we might have a problem. So you want a lease that's that's, a really good lease that will, address a lot of that stuff, you know? I've seen some leases that's only like 2 pages. A lot of times that's not gonna address a lot of the concerns that you might have. So you want a lease that's pretty good. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I got that at all, so I'm gonna leave that one alone, but yeah, I'll get it together. Okay. You can move on. I think, you said 6:20 or 6:10?
5 minutes.
All right. Management, property management reminder. Now that you guys are big time property managers, you own like 8 properties, you got 6 over here, 3 here, 4 here, right? 4, yep. These are some reminders. Communicate with your tenants. Don't let a little small drip turn into, okay, got it. Don't let a small drip turn into, you know, a disaster where the whole ceiling is falling down. Make sure, especially I have properties in Philly too. Make sure your utility, you like in PGW, like it's a landlord tenant program where, you know, you're not being charged for the gas. You know, if you can get into a program where, you know, all the liability is on the tenant, that's what you want it to be. You know, you don't want electric in your name. If you can have it in your tenant's name, that's what it's supposed to be. You know, even the water, if you can, you know, not have it in your name, but make sure they pay for it. Because they'll be outside washing cars. Everybody's car, in the whole neighborhood. So you want to have that under control too. Establish clear rent collection and eviction policy. You know, be standard. Like they late 5 days, give them a 5-day late letter. You know, you're late. You know what I mean? You're subject to being evicted. Blah blah blah. You know, pay your late fee. Blah blah blah. Raise rent strategically. Don't like if you charge somebody. I got a couple clients that charge them too low. Say, hey, you know, should incrementally raise the rent because it's way too low, it's way below the market, and show them comps like, hey, you know, it's supposed to be 1,000, you only charge them $600. Well, you know, how are you gonna make any money there ever? So, you know, those, yeah. Insurance essentials. I don't know if this really, it does apply. Builder's risk during construction, ownership, insurance. When you're building something, you gotta have insurance to cover everyone. So you wanna, I just rehab the property and I had insurance on the subcontractor, you know, umbrella insurance, stuff like that. So you wanna have insurance over that whole entire, in case somebody gets hurt, and then say somebody gets hurt, and then the GC doesn't have efficient insurance, you want to be able to take care of that. Lease must be clarified that tenants' belongings aren't covered. You know, in case of a fire, I had a situation where the fire, the tenant didn't have insurance. They tried to come after me, say, hey, you know what? All my belongings were, I had in a lease, like, yo, you should have your insurance. You had it? Oh, it's in the lease that you said you had insurance when we signed it. So what happened? I didn't pay it. Oh, well, then that's your fault. That ain't my fault. You ain't getting nothing. You know, so gotta have that covered. Keep documentation, reliability and compliance. You know, keep it all. You know, I have a client, and I hate to keep on going back and forth with clients. I have a client that lost her lease and wanted me to ask the tenant to get the tenant to give me a copy of her lease that she didn't have. So I'm like, wow, I'm a bad guy. Sometimes I gotta do that. I'm good. Oh, I'm sorry.
In your experience, just your experience, for business purposes, are you using an S corp or LLC when you putting this in insurance?
All the buildings I have is in an LLC, so
Yes, sir.
that's how I do it.
I'm not just your experience. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Y'all have any questions? Q&A right now. You know, y'all can throw darts at me. Q&A.
You just starting out as in the lease, own your properties or sell your properties, in your professional opinion, what is like, how should we start in what advice would you have to give?
Get a mentor. Get somebody, if you don't know, whatever area you're not, well schooled in, get somebody that is. And walk along with that person, as long as that person allows you to walk along with them, and then go from there, you know? Don't try to take on stuff that you don't know, and then that's how you make mistakes, and that's how, you know, it costs you money. So you wanna walk along with somebody that knows, that's been through a couple of things. Anybody else? Question? Well, thank y'all, that was
All
quick and easy.
right, thank you. Next presenter come up, I know you gotta get your screen up, I'm gonna stop sharing so that you can come up, and then after Mr. Paul goes, we are going to have our break and have something to eat. Is that all right?
About security deposit, they be talking.
Security card? Yeah, security card.
That's the other point, that.
Oh, you got a question. You know who got a question for him?
Okay, you got a question while Paul is getting together?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Real quick question about the security deposit. Security deposit, how many, how much, security can you collect? I might have to share a little.
1 month's rent.
Can you do like 3 or 4 months? How many months?
First elect.
First
And security.
Cool, and then when you gotta give, say for instance, like 2 months, when you got to give it back? Do you have to give both the 2 months back, or you have to give 1 month back?
Sorry, repeat that. Forgive me.
When you collect 2 months
Yes, sir.
security, when do you have to give that 1 month back? Yeah, I can even say it. You have it.
You mean once they leave?
Nah. During the course of their stay, they stay for 5 years. When do you have to get that 30 days? After 1 year.
Yeah.
It's on there. Actually, it's on.
So the question that I have for you,
It's his turn now.
Oh,
No.
Are you good?
No, yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, no, or see.
Too late.
You go.
I'll get you after class.
I go. And we're good?
We are good, you got the floor, Paul.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Paul Fritz, and I am the planning and zoning director for the city of Chester. And my role tonight is to give you an overview, which is probably an overview of planning and zoning in the city of Chester. But mostly I'll concentrate on zoning and getting to zoning. I just had this slide up because there can be confusion about the difference between planning and zoning. Zoning is a legal thing and planning is the city's outlook in the future. So the city is required by the state to actually have a comprehensive plan, which it does. It has a recent one dating back from roughly 2023. And that is roughly a 10-year outlook on what the city wants to be. And it talks about economic development, talks about housing, talks about parks and recreation, and trails, and transportation. But that comprehensive plan and that future outlook relates to zoning, which I'm going to talk about. There is a connection between the two, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Just one more thing about the city planning and zoning department. I am the director, but there's 2 other people in the office that are key in the office. There's Kim Garner, who is the assistant director. She's been with the city for a long, long time and has an extreme amount of institutional knowledge, which is key for planning and zoning and actually other departments in the city. And then we also have Al Sargent Jr., who is the zoning enforcement officer, position that was just recently filled within the past couple of years, I would say. The city has never had a zoning enforcement officer. And I actually think it's a great benefit to the city because a lot of things in the city they got away with a lot of things in the city without zoning being enforced. So Al is focused on enforcing what's on the books as far as laws go for the city.
Can you give an example?
So for instance, Al will go out driving during the day and look for things. One example would be maybe a junkyard happening in a mixed use district, and I'll talk about what a mixed use district is, but you can imagine mixed use being retail and housing. And there's a lot of just junk. We have a definition for junk in the city, and that person, in all likelihood, is not compliant with the zoning code or ordinance. So we would create a zoning enforcement notice and enact kind of a legal process to make that person either become compliant or actually remove the junk. So it's a way to almost police the zoning of the city. And I can talk about that more if we want to do it. So I thought what would be most beneficial in the short time that I have is just talk about 4 things. And I'm happy to take any questions, and I'm always available by email or phone. But I really just want to talk about what is zoning, why does it matter, when do you need a zoning permit, and some steps to think about when navigating zoning in Chester. So let me start with just what is zoning. So as I mentioned, zoning is really a set of local laws that were adopted by city council. So for City of Chester, it has a zoning ordinance that was adopted in 2015. So it's almost 10 years, it's over 10 years old here. Right there. And it's, I would say it's about 150 pages. It's a lot of text, and I'll explain a little bit more about what that is. But it regulates essentially land in the city based on the city's vision of the use of land in a comprehensive plan. So zoning gets its name from what zoning does. It divides the city into mapped areas, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whether it's industrial, whether it's a mix of residential and commercial. And there's different levels of those zones, but it's called zones because the city and municipalities are divided up into those districts. And then each zoning district has a set of rules. So you can imagine residential districts have rules about housing, scale of housings, the height of housing, the density of housing, the size of a lot that housing can have on. And then if you go to commercial, it has its own guidelines as well. And then it also sets reasonable limits on how a property can be developed. So in that guidelines, it'll tell you that you'll have some limits on what you can do as far as height and what how much impervious surface coverage you can have on the property. I'll get into that. I think the most important thing to know too is that zoning is text and it's also a map. So the map tells you where in what zone your property is located in. So an instance here, you got all these different colors, the red being the central business district, that's the Avenue of the States is obviously in Edgemont Ave. You've got industrial on the waterfront, that's the purple. You've got orange and yellow, those are residential districts. But your property in the city is mapped. And I'll come back to that as well. So just 2 key things to know, that zoning is a text and it's a map as well. So why does it matter? Why does zoning matter to the city? Well, one, it ensures development aligns with the character of a neighborhood. And neighborhoods, again, could be the central business district. It can just be the waterfront. It could be our industrial areas. And really the rules are set up by zoning to protect that character. And actually build upon that character and reinforce the character that the community desires. Then zoning also gives residents expectations of how properties can be developed, and I'll come back to that because that's key for people in your position. It sets some guidelines on how far a property can be developed, and that's important with residential and commercial. And then it also just ensures that development is safe, orderly, and compatible, and that's really what zoning is for. It's supposed to be enforcing health, safety, and welfare of the community. So these rules, although they're red tape, they're really for you, us, everyone, because it's keeping some sense of order and safety in the community. And it has linkages to all the other city things going on, whether it's public works, whether it's license and inspections. It all relates to each other as far as planning and zoning goes. So why does it matter to you as a developer? Well, it directly affects what you can and can't build on your property. So if you have a residential property, you can't necessarily build a commercial property, right? That's pretty obvious, but that's all controlled by zoning. So again, that directly affects what you can and can't do. And that influences your design and your budget and your approval time, depending on the level of development you're doing. If you're just turning over a residence, you're rehabbing it and selling it or renting it out, zoning may be less influential on what you want to do. But if you think about land development, so you want to start something from scratch, whether let's just say apartment complex, there's a lot of effort behind it that relates to land development and zoning. And then lastly, and I'll emphasize this again, is that it's important to you because if you're making an investment, you want to have some predictability on that investment's future. So if you're putting money into something, you want to make sure your neighbor on the left and the right and the front and the back is going to bring value and hold the value at a minimum on your property. So again, zoning is here to help you protect your investment. It's one way to look at it. And really, if your zoning is community driven, it's all in your favor. And that's why it's, again, it can look like red tape. And sometimes it is bureaucratic, but it's there for your protection. Just know that. Has anybody ever applied for a zoning permit? Excellent. Anybody else? Was it the city of Chester?
Yep.
Do you remember? Do you remember what it was for?
Talking to me?
You can go for it, sure.
Oh, yeah, it was for commercial zoning.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
On
for
Avenue and State.
a commercial use.
Yeah.
Okay, like an office or something. Okay, is that Vanessa, what about you? Okay, right, all right. Let's say that commercial use. And that's important to know too, because zoning isn't just about use, it's about all these other bullets here, which I really think it's important I go through these with you. So one, it's about, it regulates the construction, placement of a structure. So that can be a house, an apartment complex, it can even be a shed, it can be a deck, and it can be a sign. So erecting a new sign, you need a zoning. If you change the type of use, which we just talked about, changing, let's say, something from a restaurant to an office, that's a change of use, you need a zoning. If you change your lot lines, let's say you have 3 parcels and you have one building on the far left parcel, and you want to make those, and you own all 3 parcels, and you want to collapse those parcels into one parcel so you have more room for that one building, that's a change for lot lines, and that would require a zoning. Talked about new use. Here's something you may not know. So the zoning permit isn't needed for demolition. And it's demolition only of a principal building. So if you're going to demolish a garage behind a house, you don't necessarily need a zoning. But you're going to take that house down and redevelop and a zoning. If you're going to take the porch off that house is the principal structure. If you're going to take something off partially on that structure, you need a zoning. And then the last 2, there's site alterations. To me, site alterations would be putting in a driveway, putting in a parking pad, putting in a patio. That would be, to me, the outside of the envelope of the building that you own. You most likely need a zoning. And then I mentioned here, a parking lot or a driveway is also considered what you would have to apply for a zoning. So I have a couple of quizzes here. So if you're building a 200 square foot addition to an existing building, do you think you need a zoning?
Yes.
Yes. Even for 200 square feet, which is really small. Okay. You're up. How about building a deck?
Yes.
How about putting a roof over an existing deck?
No.
Wait.
Building a roof.
Oh, you said building, there was no.
No roof over the deck, they want to put a porch roof because you add into it. Exactly, for adding to the structure. Yes. Planting trees and landscaping on the property?
No.
How many? And what type of tree?
That's changed. That's changed.
Yeah, that's a trick question, y'all. Y'all better think about that.
It's a tricky one, but in general, let's say in general. Yeah,
No, okay.
you really can plant a garden, you can plant a tree on your property. The only issue I would bring up, and I don't know if you were thinking this, you couldn't plant a tree in the public right of way, which in the city of Chester, in most cases, public right of way is on the inside of the sidewalk, so you got the street, the curb, sometimes a grass strip, sidewalk, and then that far edge on the sidewalk is the public right of way. So if you wanted to put a tree in that green strip between the sidewalk and the curb, that's public land, and you would have to ask permission. Although we'd love you to do it as a city, the city needs street trees, you have to get permission.
I have a
And not
question
necessarily
about what you can say. We said that's public land,
Yes,
although it's on a sidewalk.
yes. Yeah, so the city owns sidewalk into the street. If you look on a map, like a tax map from the county assessment office, you'll see that the boundaries are typically 60 feet around city street. From the center line out, it's roughly 30 feet.
I have a
That
question.
goes out, in most cases, it goes outside the side.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, so the street, so the city will take care of the streets, not necessarily always the sidewalks, but they own that land. It's a
Right,
public
most
right of way.
time they always tell you guys, if it's broken up, you have to repair it. You have to repair it.
Yes, in some instances, yes.
Oh,
But
And that's a whole different topic, because that gets into public works and
Oh.
different kinds of permits. and things like that. It's not zone, but it's a good question. So you're struggling with that? On what the, yeah,
Because when something happens
Yeah, it's coming.
within my sidewalk, the city tells me I'm responsible for it.
in some instances, yes, in the sidewalk repairs, that could be your, even though the city owns it, they'll ask you to be responsible for the repair or something. Sometimes, yes. So like the utilities, another way to look at it is the utility companies, which usually have their piping underground, whether it's gas or water, or in the city streets, right? And then when it hits your property boundary, which is usually on the other side of the sidewalk, that's all your responsibility. So if you have a backup or something in that private area, that's your responsibility. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? I can show you on a map, I can show you.
On the sidewalk
That's gonna be-
side, that totally kind of contradicts.
The ownership responsibility.
The ownership.
Yeah, it gets a
Yeah.
little tricky. Same thing as with street trees, the city will claim that street trees are the responsibility of the owner too. And there's reasons for that, but I think the important thing to know is that the streets and just beyond the street sides, this curves is city owned land, is public land. Now, I should caution you, sometimes that land is owned by the state as well. So Curlin Street most of Curlin is a city street. West Second Street, 291, that's state road.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's public land. All right, so no on the planting of trees and landscaping. What about starting a business in a residence? Yes.
Well, it depends if you're like, you have a home office.
Yeah, if it's just like you're working from home, no, but if you're starting a business, there's actually a term for that, which I'm sure you probably heard of, home occupation. So let's say you're an accountant and you worked out of your house, that'd be a home occupation, because you have no other office in it, that's your office. That would be a business and you'd have to get a zone. So yes. What about replacing your roofing? This is zoning permit, so would you need a zoning permit for this?
Really? No, I don't think
Replacing,
so.
now
I
you
don't think
just-
so.
Replacing that.
Replacing my roof on my house.
Like replacing the shingles on your roof.
No. No,
You need a permit, not a zoning permit, but a building. permit. And that's the other thing to be.
but why permit? Oh, just a question.
Yeah. So there's other things going on here too, because there's a zoning permit, which is really what you should know first,
Gotcha.
is what zone you're in, what zoning requirements do I need to be? And then you'll have your construction.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole different ball of wax. I don't even speak about that tonight. Aaron may talk about that a little bit.
That's Aaron's
Okay,
lane.
cool.
It's Aaron's lane, yeah. So it usually starts with zoning. That's your first base, as Kim would say in the office, and your second base is construction. And you need your zoning permit first before you can get your construction. But in the sense of a roof,
Yeah.
you just go straight to construction. There's no zoning. For that, Jake. What about, I think it's the last one, replacing old windows with the same ones of the same size. Oh, well, there's one more. How about finishing an attic and turning it into a guest room?
That's teacher treatment. That's in my house.
Not zoning, but permanent.
I changed the interior though. I changed the interior, not the exterior.
It's true. Here's, you would need it, to be honest with you, because you could be putting another bedroom, if you were doing a rental, you could have an extra bedroom you're putting in there. And the other thing is, if you put another bedroom in, you're increasing your value of your house. So there's some things that the county will want to know for the tax appraisal reasons, so it goes.
I get that.
Now, the other thing I want to emphasize too is, again, they sound like red tape. But getting a zoning permit for this would be great. My mind. Would take a little bit of time, it may take 2 weeks, but you could get the zoning. It wouldn't be a struggle. So it's just something to be aware of. These are kind of the easier things to take care of.
And,
Yeah.
and that is my question, sir. How can we make something more definitive than subjective when we're coming and presenting a zoning permit to what is the actual department looking for, so we can polish that correct?
I'll get to that. That's a great question.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because that kind of leads into what I want to talk about. And that's just some steps to navigate through the zoning process. So I've kind of narrowed it down to 5 steps. There's probably more steps in there, but I see it as 5 general steps you have to navigate to get a zoning. So 1, we talked about the map, right? So this is actually the actual zoning map for the city. The beauty of this map is it's online now. So you can zoom in, zoom out on your property. You can aerial photograph. You can zoom right in, find out, oh, I'm in this neighborhood, I'm at this property, I'm in the R2 district. Step 1, find out what zoning district you're located in. Because again, all the rules and everything are going to surround the zoning district you're in addition to some additional regulations that are general to all of those groups. So step 1, zoning map. Step 2, find the zoning ordinance, which is online, and it's on the planning department's webpage on the city's website. And what you'll end up doing is finding, if you're going to do some kind of housing use, especially or commercial or industrial, but and your topic is residential, you want to find out if that type of use, let's take single family detached dwelling, is allowed in any of these districts, the residential districts. These are just the residential districts, which includes the conservation district, R1, the R2, R3, R4. Basically, the density and intensity of development increases in these districts. So the R1 is more larger lots, bigger homes. Kind of imagine the lots near Widener. They're all R1 for the most. Yeah, so like this area just north of Widener, this is the R2. There's not a whole lot of R1 in the city, but there is plenty of R2, so you got tighter and smaller lots for residential use. But you'll want to go to this use table because you want to find out if it's permitted. So for instance, there's a couple levels of permission. 1P is it's permitted by right. So a single family detached dwelling in R1 or any of the R district, it's just allowed. It is what it is, and that makes it easy. Versus if you go down to the conversion of existing dwelling units, so let's say you want to convert an existing 1 family into 2 or more dwelling units. In the R1, the R2, and the R3, that's a special exception. So what is a special exception? Special exception is one more level up from just getting a by right zoning permit, which would be just an application and getting the permit essentially. A special exception, you actually have to go in front of the zoning hearing board, which is a semi-judicial board that meets when there's requests for special exceptions or variances, which I may not get into much tonight. But just know there's several or at least a couple levels of permissions or types of uses in the zoning ordinance. That would be step 2. Find out if your proposed use is allowed. And step 3 would be to look at the dimensional requirements for each district. So I've got here a table for the R3 district, which is the high density residential district. And it has these requirements for the district. So it has a minimum lot area, a minimum lot width, maximum building height, a minimum front yard setback, that's the setback from your public frontage to the back of your building. Just the opposite of rear yard setback, that's from the back of your property to the back of your building. Side yard, on either side of your building, there's required side yard setbacks or distances from the property line to your building. And then there's this last 2, there's a maximum % building coverage. So in the R3, that's actually 60% of your lot can be covered by the building. That's actually quite a lot if you think about it. And then there's a maximum impervious coverage, which is your driveway payment, any hard pavement, even decks count, your patios, any hard surfaces count as impervious surface coverage. So that increases above the building coverage to 70%, so it's another 10% beyond what the building can be. So that does allow typically for driveways. If you have a shed in the back, that actually counts towards your impervious surface coverage. So why do we have these, especially these last 2? Because in the end, the city has to manage the stormwater and your coverage on your land. If it's not green and it's pavement or a roof, that all has to drain somewhere. That water rushes off that roof, the stormwater, it ends up going into the city's sewer system, or it goes right into the creeks that we have. But that all has to be managed. And the city, by state standards, has to manage it to a certain level. So that's why the standards for impervious surface coverage are there. So if you can just imagine everybody's yard were paved, you would have a tremendous amount of flooding if you didn't have the green in the city that absorbs the stormwater. So there's reasons behind these percentages that are in here. It's a good thing to know because, as Gary mentioned, you want to celebrate the amenities that you have in your place. So if you have a nice patio or a nice deck, or you want to expand that patio, make it bigger and fill up the whole backyard, just be careful because you don't want to trip this impervious surface coverage. Something to think about. Yeah,
What if you buy a property that has that, they already violated that, and you
Yeah.
buy it?
Yep.
Are you subject to, the city coming after you because of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a thing out there called non-conforming use, which is another way to say they may be grandfathered in what their circumstances are. We have a tremendous amount of non-conformings in the city. And partly the non-conformity started after 2015 when this new zoning ordinance. Yeah, let's just use impervious surface coverage. Let's say someone has 95% impervious surface coverage. The house has been there since 1910. It's just this way the situation is. It would be called an existing non-conforming use. The burden is put on the owner to prove that non-conforming use. But a lot of times we can go back and do photography, kind of just confirm it with the owner or applicant that's interested in just understanding what they comply with. But yes, that happens all the time. It's something the new ordinance, and I call this new because it's 2015. It tried to be delicate about it, and it has done a pretty good job. When we find non-conformings, we work with the owner to figure out if they really are existing non-conformings, if they should be grandfathered. So that's a really good question. Does that make sense? It can be a lot. There's a lot to cover. All right, step 4 or 5. Beyond the guidelines that are in the zoning ordinance for each district, there's also supplemental regulations. And there's supplemental on parking. There's some landscaping requirements. Signs fall under zoning. So there's sign sizes and locations that have to comply with the zoning ordinance. But there's also specific use regulations. One that comes to mind is like group homes. Let's say you were thinking about doing a group home. There's regulations for that. And there's probably maybe a dozen bullets that relate to what you can and can't do group homes in the city. There's other uses too that are regulated. So this is something you want to see. You wouldn't want to just see just that table I showed you. You'd also want to understand all the other regulations. Yes,
That's for all the acronyms, ALRs, PCHAs, any type of personal care home.
yes, personal care home, exactly, yes. That's a use that's actually specifically addressed in the zoning. codes.
All right.
Yeah, good one. All right, and step 5 is the last thing. It's applying for a zoning permit. So zoning permit is basically a one-page document, but there's more to it. And I think someone had asked about like, all right, what do you need to do to clarify what you want to do in here? Well, this is set up for you to identify who you are, and again, it usually needs to be the owner. And the owner provides a deed to verify that they own the property, or an authorized agent may also apply. You need permission from the owner. So you fill out owner information, and then you describe how you're related to the owner. Could be an attorney, a tenant, contractor, design professional, and even an expediter, like someone who represents the owner to make this project happen. But then there's this open box here, which really is the thing that our office scrutinizes. It's a description of what you want to do. And a lot of times the description really should be on a plan, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you should be as detailed as possible in the zoning permit. Otherwise, it's going to be delay, because we'll ask you questions to be more specific about like, wait, can you tell me more about your use and how many units are you going to have in this? You need to spell it out in the zoning. It depends on the level of detail in a zoning permit, but most instances we can get it back in 2 weeks. If it's a land development, which is a whole different ball of wax, and I'm not getting into that tonight, that can take 6 months to a year. It's just the fact of what land development is these days. It's complicated. And I'm happy to talk about that anytime any of you may get into that scenario. But just for a zoning permit, like for a deck, you should be able to get that permit back in 2 weeks, or you should be yelling at Kim if that's the case.
Don't yell at him.
We're used to it.
What if the people do the deck without the zoning permit? What can happen?
Well, a number of things can happen. One, sometimes we catch things because they're submitted for the building permit, which is fine. But our office actually looks at the building permits and finds out, well, oh, wait a minute, these people never got a zoning permit. And we'll reach out to the applicant. So we see it that sometimes, because that's how we catch people. And sometimes people just didn't realize they needed zoning. That happens all the time. And we'll catch them and say, hey, you got to submit a zoning permit to get approved. And then people do things without permission. We've all seen it. And they ask for forgiveness afterwards, which is not the right way to do things, because you can get fined, especially on the building permit side. Zoning, you'll just get an enforcement notice, and that can hold up future development, future permitting, future transfers of that property. You don't want to get into that scenario. You want to do it by the book. Again, it does take time, takes money, takes effort, but you want to adhere to the zoning because, again, it's about protecting your own investment and your value that you're putting into this. Does that answer your question, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about one of the other requirements of the zoning permits. I think this is a key thing to be aware of, and we get questions about it all the time. And probably it's because we don't clarify it enough on the city end, and we're working on that to clarify what we need. Part of a zoning permit application, in most instances, you need a site plan. So a site plan can be hand drawn, but it should be to a scale. So there's scales, like you've seen this 1/2 inch equals a foot. It can be 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. Something needs to be at scale so we can determine a number of things. Exactly what is on that table that I showed you is on here. So we can know this site plan, which was done by a professional. It's taken a plot of the land. It's showing the proposed building. It's showing the property boundary that building sits on. It's showing, I think, where it wants to expand, and its impervious surface coverage. It's setback dimensions on the side yard and the rear yard and the front yard. It's giving us all this zoning information to make Kim, myself, and others in the office to understand if it's meeting zoning requirements. If we don't have a site plan, we really don't know what you're really proposing. So do you need that for a deck? Yes, you need a site plan. But again, it can be hand drawn. It can be easy to do on a piece of graph paper. That can be your scale. And again, that's something like we can help you understand if you need that down the line. But I wanted to show you really what a professional site plan looks like. So this was a qualified engineer, you know, it's to scale, it has a north aerial, it shows where the property is in the city, and again, it has a zoning table. It puts everything in front of us, which again helps the applicant because it can make it quicker to get the zoning permit. And again, time is money, so we want to make sure this is efficient for you. So the better a site plan, most likely the better response you'll get from the zoning office. Here's another component that we try to ask for, especially for redevelopment and new development of housing and commercial spaces too, is a floor layout. And part of the reason is, want to know how many units. So how many kitchens does this place? How many bathrooms? It's really just, it's a verification of how many units we have, because as I mentioned before, understanding the number of units in a district is important, because we have seen a lot of conversions, which is okay, from single family to two family, but in some districts, it's not a lot, or it's allowed only if you have a certain square footage in the house. I think like in the R1, maybe most of the Rs, you have to have 3,000 square feet to convert a single family into a two family. That's a lot. There's not a lot of 3,000 square foot homes. So part of the reason of understanding the floor layout is was just to be more clear for the number of units, be more clear in what we give you as far as a permit, and then also helps for the building invoices as well. I have a photo of elevations. This isn't always necessary. Again, this would be for redevelopment or big addition. You can imagine this is an addition here. This is really just identifying that, yeah, we're going to stay at a roof height under 30 feet in this district, and that's what's allowed. So it kind of just confirms it. And that may be something the building department wants to see. If you can give us this an elevation when it's needed, that's great. It's not always necessary. And then I'll leave you with some things to consider. And again, this is a tough thing to go over in half hour zoning, but I'm always happy to talk to you about it. We can do it. Just remember, there's a difference between a zoning permit and a building permit. Zoning permit is first base, building permit comes next, second base. Two different types of permits, they go in a sequence. In most instances, new construction or any major renovation, you'll need both permits. You'll need a zoning permit and a building permit. You can't just go straight to a building permit. Here's another key. For a zoning ordinance, our office is here to help guide development and help you. So if you have any question interpreting the zoning ordinance, you should reach out to our office, email, phone, you name it. We're here to help you understand what the limitations or what can be allowed, all the technical language in that zoning ordinance we can help you with and interpret. And then we can tell you, obviously, if there's a use in there that is permissible, or you may need some other kind of review or presentations in front of the planning commission or the zoning hearing board. We can help you through that process.
Good question.
Yeah.
What if you're interested in manufactured homes, modular homes, placing it, you know, in a vacant lot or whatever? Yeah, the zoning for that. I might say.
Yeah, the mobile homes are addressed. Tiny homes right now fall under a single family dwelling. We've had people approach us about it.
What's the city thoughts on that?
It's interesting. I mean, we're interested in housing. That is a major vision in we're proponents of housing. So the only issue with tiny homes are they are not necessarily the most efficient thing to put on a piece of So-
That's why it make it seem like.
If you, yeah, they can be affordable, but actually putting them on the piece of land for one unit may not be worth the value of effort and money that you put into that.
Understood.
In most instances, you try to maximize what you can get out of that land. So let's just say a 3-unit triplex would be allowed on that land, but not necessarily 3 separate single-family homes, because you just don't have the lot sizes. In most instances, you would think about maximizing that into a triplex and building one larger building that has 3 units. That would be more efficient. So tiny homes work, but in an instance, they actually work more easily and sometimes more appropriately in like rural land or green land, because they have easy access to sewers, the land is cheap, and the restrictions are less. In the city, we have a more restricted environment. We have old land, we have infrastructure issues, we have all sorts of things. So a tiny home may not be your best use. And it's not that we're against tiny homes, it's just, it's not efficient. If that makes sense. Sure.
Since we touched on the tiny home, what about innovative things like shipping containers? Is that still like a zoning issue as well? Like,
That would be a zoning issue too.
all right,
Yeah.
shipping container type home.
Yep, yep.
Innovative.
Yep.
Structure.
And I would almost look at that as being like tiny homes, because you want to again maximize, I would think, I'm not gonna tell you what you do, but I would think you want to maximize your investment with multiple units and like stacking the, you've seen that happen. There'd be a lot of questions from the city on that and making it acceptable and meeting all the other requirements. So it's a good question, because that brings me to another point, is that you have to understand there's no perfect zoning ordinance. There never will be. And the city's, I would say, is pretty good, especially since it's newer, it's from 2015. And its regulations were updated because the old ordinance dated back from the 50s and it was way behind. But every day we're working on trying to make improvements to the zoning ordinance. And I'll give you one hangup that's a problem in the city that we're trying to address, and it's going to take some time, but that's parking. So there's parking requirements for new housing. Let's say if you're doing anything greater than a 2 or 3 unit development, you're gonna have to have parking spaces, off-street parking spaces. That's what's based in the code. That can be hugely restrictive on what you can, because you may not have the size of a lot to have.
CCIP did the other states, is that what you're talking about, like with that, twin home, how they had the off-street parking?
Yeah, that's part of it, is they're trying to accommodate parking off the street on the
So it has to
driveway
look something
or
like
off
that.
an alley. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're meeting the specs on that, yeah. But in some instances, whether you're trying to combine commercial with residential, the commercial is gonna have a use requirement for parking, the residential is gonna have a requirement. And trying to get all that off-street parking on the parcel you have, it can be extremely difficult. So you may have to request a variance.
A lot of the areas that are small.
A lot of the plots are small. So we're working, you have to know that we're working on trying to make some adjustments. It isn't just parking, we're trying to make adjustments here and there, maybe addressing tiny homes more clearly and specifically. I just want to make sure you're aware that what we have as an ordinance is good, but it can always get better, and that's part of our office's mission, is to make improvements. And we try to listen to what the public says, and we also try to see what comes in and see where the difficulties are happening. Whether a lot of people are coming from the zoning or coming to the zoning hearing board because they're not meeting the parking requirements. We should try to be coming up with solutions to resolve it. So just something to be aware. You don't know any time?
I had a question.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I did, the question was going back to the example that you had about the attic and the
Yeah.
addition.
Yeah.
So if you're not changing the zoning characterization or adding space, how do you why do you need to go to zoning if it doesn't change the classification of the property?
It's a good question. It's more, it's maybe getting a little invasive, but it's also just making sure that you're not putting another unit in there, which, you're finishing out at doing that, but most likely you're not. But again, it's strictly trying to make sure that you're not doing something that shouldn't do. It does sound like red tape-ish, but it should be an easy permit. If you're just showing us, if you told us a floor plan, I'm just putting a couch up there so the kids can go up to the attic and have a playroom.
Okay.
That is not a big deal.
Okay. And then the second question is, if folks want to get, and you talked about the special exceptions,
Yeah.
is that like a big, not been involved here. I'm listening to Philadelphia with like a big process, the
Yeah.
council gets involved and neighbors get involved. So is it like that here, folks?
It's not as intense. It's really just putting another layer of community input onto it. So the zoning hearing board requires a public hearing. It's basically a public hearing. So people within 200 feet of that property are notified. You don't need council approval. That's actually a conditional use. And actually, the city doesn't have any conditional use requirements, but that's in the zoning. We just mostly have special exceptions. So it's just another layer of that, which again slows you down because it takes a couple months to get on the agenda for the zoning hearing board. You have to pay a higher fee to get in front of the zoning hearing board. There's some steps you have to take. So it's another level. It's a good question. Good. I think this is just my last slide. I'm going to put a plug in for, this is really for land development, if you're thinking about it, is getting a survey, a professional survey. And one of the reasons is, one, you need to know your property boundaries, where your proposed development's going to happen. You need to know where your corners of your property are. It's also going to help you create that site plan, get approval through the zoning permit process. It's going to give you the ability to draw accurately what you want to propose. And it also gives your engineer, if you have an engineer or an architect, something to work with. So I'm a big proponent of surveys. They are costly, but in the end, they also protect your investment because you'll have a better understanding of what you own and what you don't own. And you'll be more clear on what requirements you're going to be able to meet. And then my last slide is just feel free to reach out to us if you need more information.
Well, the people get a copy of this slide show or no?
I can give them the.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let's give Mr. Paul a hand. We are gonna go ahead and take a break, and I need some of y'all was like, what? Put them eyebrows down. You heard me? Y'all still got them up like, what?
Good evening, everyone. Eric. Told you, talk about a jump step. I was sharing the student last week and I'm gonna say it today. Let's get started. Permits are required for structures, change to existing structures, repairs. Before you swing a hammer, you should probably talk to someone, and I'm not. I think we should make that a thing, like before you dig. A lot of people, all coming from New York or coming from a different state, I didn't know we had to pull a permit for this or that. It's best to come over to the city, talk with someone before you get into whatever it is you're going to get into, so that way you're not stopped up. You know, you got money and time invested, so you don't want to get jammed up because you didn't ask questions. So we talked about due diligence last week. This is another step in the due diligence process.
Okay, my bad.
The application process or what you may need the application for. You are going to submit a separate application for each individual aspect of the building or development process. It was all together, but the no, that's no longer big anymore. There is going to be a separate fee for each application. I believe it's right now at 204, maybe 204.50 with e-collect, somewhere in that range, plus 3% of the value of work. So
What was that last part, sir?
plus 3% of the value of work. Yes,
And that's up to the contractor, correct? 3% of the value of the work?
that's labor and materials.
Okay.
So you want
Isn't it up to a certain amount? Or is it just one flat? You know, it's not like $10,000 you pay this amount or 30,000 you pay this amount.
not that I'm aware. Not that I'm aware.
Oh, 3% no matter what. And, so I know,
You go back
I
one,
never
Amanda.
did this.
You
I
go
never
back a
did
slide.
this. But have you had people like say, hey, the interior work, and you know it's way more than $10,000, but they say it's only 1,000. Have you had that and you like question, yo, how are you building this whole entire house for $10,000?
Yeah, we've had that. We get it all the time. I don't personally review the application, but it's now through a third party. And, I believe they use, what you mentioned, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Ellen, mentioned yesterday, I met last Tuesday with the book as regards to what the proper estimate would be in regards to, what it is that you're looking to do. But
So you said it's that base cost plus 3% of the scope of work or the total value of the property?
no, we're scope of work.
But you have to submit your estimate.
That's labor and materials.
Who is that third party that you guys? use?
That's Brian, I believe it's Brian, is it Brian?
Razzie.
Brian Razzie and Associates?
Well, he's with Bocelli,
Oh, Bocelli.
yeah, Bocelli, but it's, you have one designated BCO, building code official, Brian Razzie.
And what if you're doing your own
He's the
work?
gatekeeper, you said,
You know,
right?
you're your own
He's
GC.
reviewer.
So you're gonna not, you know, your labor is gonna be sort of low if you're doing your own work. You're still going on a guideline of how much it's gonna cost.
I mean, that's one way of doing it, but that's typically only if, you're doing residential and you're the property owner. I don't know if that's the same instance because they want, license. You have to have a license in the city. So your state license doesn't necessitate that you can do work in the city because you have to have a separate contractor's license in the city. And they want to see a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician. Whereas, you know, if you're doing your own work, you still may need somebody that's licensed to oversee whatever it is that you're doing.
I have a question. That 3%, is that, a Chester thing or is that across the state?
I'm about to say I'm unaware, but as
Each
Amanda
area
said,
could be different. It's on ordinance. All right, document
don't like it, I would suggest, you know, you challenge it. I'm not sure what it's based off of, how they come up with, you know, that it's 3% versus 1.5%.
It's a resolution. It's a wrap.
Can we have a jumpstart waiver fee?
Listen, we can go.
That's the person to talk to about that right there. Like that. Sounds good to me. Documents needed, detailed project plans, scope of work is very important. Because a lot of the times people will say, I'm only doing this, that, and the third. And then me, code enforcement officer, I arrive, I look at your new permit. It says you're doing this, that, and the third. I ask for access into the property. I come along the property. You're doing beyond the scope. That's stop work right there. We're going to stop the process altogether. Also, if there was work done prior to you buying the property in the permit, whether previously bought by the previous owner or the contractor that done the work, and we come in and you're going to get stop work over. So do your due diligence. Another part of that due diligence would be a open records request. So that's your right to know, which are things that you're going to find out that you might not find out in the title search.
What is something that you come across, not to look for great areas, but what is something that you come across that's a great area where an investor is coming across a property and now you shut them down and I never even within the open request because of not lack of paperwork or digital necessity, but we're both seeing something that we didn't come across and you shut me down. How can I be? Because the city is working on bettering things. We're hearing that from every industry.
Right, right.
So if we both come across something that we both feel as though it's an impasse, how can we get past that to be a great developer for the city?
I would definitely say, scope and then cost. I would think that would be two of the, biggest areas. You know, if anything, that's all I can really think.
No, I got you.
As far as
And the reason why I asked that question is if we fill in the gaps for building, insurance for risk, if we put in the gaps for zoning and things like that, how can we make sure we fill in those gaps? To have you not come in and say, Shannon, I'm shutting it down. This came from, you know, the previous building. And I'm looking at you, you know, from my same environment. Bro, I didn't even know that.
But
You know,
you can
right,
also,
so that
also,
speaks, that
you
speaks
can also
exactly
go, right,
to,
and ask for, if there's a permit moving on the property, right?
that would be exactly what I just spoke to.
Okay.
Which is your right to know, which would be
that open,
you doing the open record request. So that would be all of what previously took place or what didn't take place in lieu of you doing whatever it is that you're looking to do.
so even if we come across that impasse, I can come in and say, oh gee, I have my open record request. You know, we're at an impasse. I know you don't know and I don't know. They're gonna open request like, let's look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
And if there's some form of hiccup, we have an appeal board. We also would take it to our supervisor, our superiors, and they would go over whatever gray area or impasses that you've encountered.
Right.
And, you know, try to work it out. We're looking to have you to come in and develop. We don't want to stop your process. You know, we try to stay out of your hair after you've done what you're supposed to do.
Basically build safe and abide by the laws. That's basically what it is.
That open record request is something you're saying.
All of the other things, photos of current conditions, like I said, if you wanted to purchase the property and was previously work done or was previously gutted, and they didn't pull, and the previous owner didn't, you know, pull a permit for that type of things, but we're talking about development, so you're not really going to necessarily get into that, not unless you're demoing the property. So I don't really think you would face too much of that issue or anything like that. With the demo portions, with doing the due diligence and pulling that rights to know, you will find out if there were any previous violations of the property. Because all violations don't turn into liens, which don't show up on the title sheet. That's definitely important. You must display the permit visibly, not unless you don't have a window. That's important because if you show up, the permit's not there, that's justifiable enough cause for us to post to stop work. Typically, we try to go up and talk to somebody to see if the permit's there. Like I said, we're not trying to stop anyone's process or get in the way of what needs to be taken care of or needs to be done. Inspector visits, not me, Brian, more than likely, because you have rough inspections, you have final inspections, you have inspections for inspections. You have inspections on time, inspection. It's just all about, you know, safety and make sure you're doing things up to code and making sure the materials and all of those different things that go into, you know, the building and that everything is in working order, so that way, you know, we don't have issues in regards to, you know, after you develop the property, 6 months in, you're having some issues, or the tenants are having some issues, or, you know, and you're calling us, you know, I got XYZ problems, and we're back out there, and, okay, you know, it's clearly looking done.
So, question, so I know there's various levels of codes in the state of Pennsylvania, right? So whether electricity, drywall, et cetera, right? There are different levels of code. Is there a way that a person could have a conversation with your office before they get started? So, because I've seen many times, especially with commercial properties, that, you know, the contractor is building to one code, the city wants a different code, and then they wind up pulling it all out in order to meet that city code. So is there a conversation that happens beforehand that says we want this level as far as the city's concerned versus?
That's a good question. I would say a good rule of thumb, just by code ordinance in itself, is whatever the most restrictive or the most stringent standard is. That's what would be the basically highest code to, you know, take or proceed precedence over whatever the situation is.
So Chester wants the highest code. I mean, we're asking, that's what we're saying, right?
Well, in the instance of what you're speaking of, well, you have your international property maintenance code, you have your residential building code, and you also have your I believe it's on probably the next slide or so. It's another code that you get into. But whatever, like I stated, whatever is the most restrictive. I would believe that the BCO, because he's the individual that interprets the code. That's what be the individual you would have that conversation with in regards to that.
What's BCO?
Building code official. Building code official.
And that's Mr. Radley, right?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Radley. And with that connection to Mr. Radley, would that come into effect for our drone? Like if we have our inspection drones to get the money?
So, no, if you have the draws that you do, we didn't need the banking department, but I was explaining to a man that, a couple of days ago, I want to say we had another meeting. So when you say on the draw, I'm gonna finish the kitchen, right? And they're gonna give you $20,000. You can't finish the kitchen without your electric already done, your plumbing already done, your roof done, your finishing done, all of it done. So you need permits for all of that before you can get to any of that. Before you can get to your draw, you're gonna have to have those permits anyway, because you're gonna do the whole house, but you're gonna get it per area that you put in your business plan to actually draw. So it's not gonna time there, they're gonna time to make sure it's done right. The money's gonna time to being complete for their inspectors.
I'm still, all right, so that's the biggest thing.
What else should we add? Yeah, that right here on the slide. International residential code and international building code. So, those are the two that would be most applicable to the not land development, but the development of the new structure. Final approval, typically certificate of occupancy. We were talking about commercial, that would be the building code official that would come out to do that final inspection for the use of occupancy. Commercial need a permit, typically, like Peter said, we're the second step. So typically, if you need a zoning, if you have to file a zoning application, more than likely you have to get a building permit. Of course, if the use is changed, substantial improvements, I mean, sometimes it's less substantial, but that's why you do your due diligence. That's why you have the conversations that you have, so that way you know before you get involved in whatever it is that you're looking to do. Common issues to avoid, which I probably kind of touched on most of these things.
Get them again, though.
Yeah. Let's see. I hadn't already touched. No, go back up. Go back. Yeah, I pretty much touched on all of them. Contractor license, like I said, might have the contractor license with the state, but the city also wants you to have a license with the city.
All right.
So what trades does the city of Chester directly inspect? Or do y'all have any disciplines that are third-party inspectors?
All disciplines as of right now, in regards to, development and the permitting process would be all third party.
So electrical inspection, third party, plumbing inspection, third party, or correct, framing, third party, all that.
Yep.
Okay. And then, okay. So that would.
How much is that fee for that third party?
I'm unaware.
What was your question?
What's the fee? It's a fee for that third party,
Oh.
usually
But when
anywhere from like 175 to like 300.
But it would typically be on the trade to get that inspected, right?
Say that one time.
Nah.
It would be the trade's responsibility to have their own inspector, correct?
No,
So the electricians wouldn't get their own.
That's on you,
no.
Right.
the buyer. I mean, whoever owns it.
Typically, if you pull a permit from the city is gonna come in and inspect. I don't know of any other instance where, not unless we don't have a third party in that discipline. Then it would tell you to go ahead and, have someone else come out and inspect the property for whatever it is, plumbing or electrical. If we didn't have that individual there in-house to do that type of inspection.
Okay, yeah, that was local. So that folks are enough.
Do you have experience with the process of blight or dealing with developers of blight? I was looking very interested in being in the blight program. How does that work? Because it seems like it's a very subjective niche.
That one time?
Do we have a right?
Yeah, we do. That's through planning and zoning, more so planning than zoning. So we do have people that, are properties that we deal with in regards to that. A lot of the properties that are blighted aren't owned by the city, they're owned by the county. So I will say that.
Are you talking about like financial?
Yes, sir. Being a contractor to actually improve the blight system and being a vendor for that push. Yes, sir. How would that go about and making myself known and present myself correctly and being on the board?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Absolutely.
I think it's bringing the qualifications to.
OSHA 10, OSHA 30.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And having your things prepared for the permits,
That's why I wanted to be definitive and making sure that things are not subjective, understanding the words to make sure I give it to you right.
Yeah.
So I can give the service to the community.
Yeah. And coming up with good plans are pretty want to do, especially if it's a total gut job and you have to start from scratch.
Well, it's say like, we talked to Mr. Razzie, he the gatekeeper, he'll tell you exactly how he's gonna give you the staff.
He is the gatekeeper on the building.
So Amanda, add him to the list, okay?
Like committee, I'm like, I never heard about that, but
So it's, a couple questions. You mentioned having some open records for access to records. Is that a pretty quick process? If we wanted to review records for a particular property, a particular piece of parcel of land?
I believe it can take anywhere from a week to, I wanna say 3 weeks typically. Depending. But
So it's not like online, you have to request and then.
Correct.
Back.
correct, because we're still in the dinosaur age and we still have a lot of paper files. And, yeah, those kind of things would more than likely have to be scanned and sent to you, or you would come in and pick up a copy of what is in the actual physical record.
Now, because you made those statements and because we're in that dinosaur age, what have you seen in your experience to make things as what we would think would be expedited? How can?
I would just say the actual, permit review process, that typically doesn't take too long if all the ducks are in a row. The application is online, but unfortunately, I don't believe you can submit it online.
That's what I have up right now.
We're working towards getting more
City.com.
online.
So since we keep talking about the form, let's go ahead and do this real quick. At ChesterCity.com, if you go to resources, you'll see forms and permits. Then hopefully it's supposed to look, this is not even. Oh, term. Well, you see forms and permits, and then there's license and inspection, but because my screen is getting small, it's not letting me do it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Here's laptop. But that's where it would be.
Yeah, most forms you're
It's not
still
working,
gonna
so.
either, digitally fill out, but still either email or bring it in person.
Yeah. Well, it's down there somewhere, so.
What is the fee to do that?
204, 204.50. That's just the, cost of the submission of the permit.
But when we're doing obviously it'll be different scenarios in the renovation, but a full gut out, that's a permit for each mechanical discipline. So you almost running out almost 1,500 to 2 bands for just your investment itself.
Well, for the demo, they don't break it down into, I'm demoing the plumbing, I'm demoing the electric. The demo
It's
is
just straight
all
demo.
one.
But when you're doing your rough ends, each discipline is a different permit.
Correct.
All right.
I have a question about the, I don't know if the prefabricated houses are part of this program, but would there be a difference in the permits as far as the prefabricated houses?
No.
If you bought one of those units, it's most instances, I don't know if it's really 100% true, but they would come with plans and drawings to help you get through the building. You're not really pulling that thing off the shelf. We want to get the specs.
So that's what I was talking about earlier. So here, permit fee schedule, oh, you can't see it terrible. I thought I was doing something. Sorry, y'all. Let me go back there and see what we did. Stop sharing there. And, here we go. So here's the permit fee. So this is under permit fees, under resources, permits and permits, and then it's license and inspection. You can go at top option and they give you all the fees. I listen, we gonna give you the right the information. I know y'all stomach's probably hurting from some of this stuff today, but this is where you find some of this information.
Now, would these be considered business expenditure or mechanical? Okay.
But this is where you'll find it, at least to try to get you a start.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to move on.
Any other questions?
In your, what's his name, Mr. Ramsey, is there a certain, does he have a contracted period or?
Yeah, is it like a mayor type form or something? How long is it?
Even the tenure of the third party person, whoever it is.
That I'm unaware of. I would believe it would be until we have someone qualified in-house.
All right, everybody, we're gonna give him a hand.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing a great job. So, everybody take a big breath. Now, I know it's some things I can't say because he in the room, but we're gonna talk about it. We'll talk about it later. That's why I got Donut and Ellen in the same day, so y'all can breathe. And we're gonna talk about that, but that's the purpose of the jumpstart networking. And Paul said it, if there's issues going on, and I see him do it all the time, so I can vouch for him. If something's going on, okay, how do we fix it? How do we make it better? But the goal is to make sure that Jumpstart has access to something that can get these projects done. We've got to get these projects done. How do we do that? And again, we're showing you these steps so that we know what they are. And then we can find out if there's better ways to do them, not cheat codes, not slacking, better ways to do it. So we're gonna always look for better ways to build.
Yeah, it's,
You asked a question
Chris?
about how things are kind of, coming better. Well, there was just outline. And then you had, you had zone. But now, we've connected. So there's interconnection where it's not. Right, it's not so much, you know, this person here, nobody's connected with one another. So there's missing steps because each party is communicating with one another. So I would definitely say that BGA is definitely one of the larger pieces where we are coming around and, you know, kind of even in the dinosaur meeting, but you know, the communication is definitely more universal. For the other departments, not hanging on. Right.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on that and say, just, you have to understand that the city is working really hard to be more efficient and business friendly. Help people like yourselves, whether it's through education or just making the system work better. We're doing our best. It's a challenge, but we are working on it.
That's what matters.
can I just add one thing to this too?
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the things as we're going through this, right? So the whole process, the whole purpose of Jumpstart is to make sure that we are doing development right, right? And so the whole with that process, it costs. So the reality of it is that if they don't fix any of these fees, those fees are still in place. If they don't change anything, it's still the process that you have to go through in order for us to develop in the right way. And so one of the things that's great about this is that it allows us to say, as a business person, these are the costs of doing business. And so you add those costs to the bottom line of what you're doing, right? So you don't want to, but if it costs you an extra $5,000 to do a project, then you divide that 5,000 by the first year of rent that you're putting out there or the sale price or whatever, in order to make sure you recoup your money.
You definitely gonna spend it regardless.
You're gonna spend it regardless, right? So you're gonna spend it either doing it the correct way up front the first time, or you're gonna spend twice as much undoing it, because the moment you don't think they're gonna catch you is when they catch you. So just putting it out there as part of the process that we want to think about as we're going through it.
Just telling them that they don't matter with the fees.
All right, we're gonna let Chris take it from you. Need a minute?
No. Still worrying about the fees.
What's up, everybody? If you could, got this little, form going on, because I showed up last time, I didn't have handouts. So, I did source of property last week and I went over a lot, so I didn't get a chance to send it out. You can put your email address on there. I have a handout emailed over to you so everybody gets it. It's just a whole list of, sources you can use to find a property, all that stuff I was talking about, list source, all that. So you'll get all that. Just give me the email address and I'll send it out to you. But, we don't have a whole lot of time. We're gonna talk about running comps on a property. Anybody ever, I think I asked this last time, has anybody done a project before? Or anybody own a piece of real estate at all? Okay. Whether you have or not, when you're looking up a piece of property, try to find the value of it, like what are some of the things you do? Call a realtor. Okay. Okay, anything else? Go ahead. Anybody else?
To look up to see what the value is?
Yeah.
Of the property?
Yeah, like where would you go to do that?
What I believe last time.
Zillow? Okay.
I'm not actively on, so.
Yeah.
I know you gave some.
Some of this before, okay. So you go online, you find some sort of resource, you get an idea what the property value is. When you're
So
running
you can
comps,
go on findtheseller.com or listsource.com.
a lot of resources you can go to find what a property value is and what a supposed property value is at any given time. But when you're looking at a project, let's just say you're driving a neighborhood, you see a property, all right, you look it up, maybe it's listed, okay? So you see what the value is, what the asking price is. You're gonna put an offer on this property based on not what it's selling for today, but what you're gonna resell it for, or what you're gonna rent it for. So the offer price that you submit is the most important component of this whole process when you're looking to redevelop a piece of real estate. So the whole saying is you make your money when you buy real estate, that's the key. So you wanna make sure you get the right offer. The only way you're gonna do the right offer is if you're honest about the comps that you brought. You don't wanna be idealistic about it. Okay, we talked about that a little bit last time when it came to sourcing a property. So one of the things that I do when I'm looking at a property, I'll drive the neighborhood, take a real honest look at what's going on in the neighborhood. Okay, because day and night, Saturday night, Friday night, after school, in the morning, midday, see if people are actually working in the neighborhood, see if there's people just hanging out, see what's going on Friday night at 10 o'clock, find out what's really going on, because you'll also see if you drive the neighborhood, if there's other renovation projects that are happening on the street, So, in the city, in Chester, when you're running comps, depending on how much activity there is, you don't really have to go that far from the subject property, the property that you're looking at. If you go a half a mile away from the subject property, it's a completely different neighborhood. If a tenth of a mile, depending on how much activity there is, should be enough. Maybe a quarter mile, but even that's probably a different neighborhood. West 21st Street's different than East 21st Street. You know what I mean? So you want to be honest about the type of property that you're buying and the neighborhood that you're buying it in. Because that affects the sale price, that affects demand, that affects days on market, that affects rental prices. So, and that's ultimately for you what you're after. If you are the investor, you want to redevelop it at a fair price so you can do it for affordable or market rate housing, whatever your plan is, but you want to be able to actually get it done, So when I'm driving through a neighborhood, those are the things that I'm looking for. What's happening in the neighborhood? Where is it headed? So then, because I'm an agent, I can pull my own comps. So what I like to do is, there's 3 segments, and I'll go into that. That's called a market analysis. I'll go in that second, not to dive into the weeds of that just yet. That's called a market analysis. There's 3 different categories that I look at. That's active under contract or pending, and then what's recently sold, okay? I focus primarily on what's sold. I like to get to the bottom line because that really tells you what's going on in the market right now. Active can give you an idea of where it's headed and sometimes what a seller would like to get. That's not always the reality of where your money's going to be, because ultimately for you, it's an investment. And the point of an investment is to make a profit. So you don't want to be idealistic about things. You want to be real certain and concrete as much as you can by reading the accurate market data. And you do that by looking at the closed comps, okay? And when I say comps, let's just say, for instance, you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,200 square foot home, row home. Those are the similar types of comps you want to look at. So you go a tenth of a mile from the subject property, similar property type, just like that, all right? You can look at what's active on the market. If you see things that are on the market for 60 days, well, right now, 60 days, 90 days, 100-something days, okay, you can tell there might be something going on there. It's either something wrong with the property, something wrong with the price, or both, okay? If it's sitting and just lingering, a lot of times people will buy a property, they'll redevelop it, they'll fall in love with their project, and they want to get all the money in the world, but guess what? You're not going to get it. You're going to get what the market says you're going to get. So that's why I always base everything on sold comps. So properties that have sold, that have recently sold, and that's a good question though. So properties that have sold, when I run the report, and you'll see it in that market analysis that I sent you, I do a tenth of a mile in Chester. Properties that have sold within the last 6 months, okay, in the similar property type and similar condition. So that's also important. If you're looking for a property that you're gonna revitalize or rehab all the way, yes, ma'am.
So when you do this for 6 months, do you try to give people a year to receive analysis for you to see what the market you needed 2 times?
Yeah, that's a more fair assessment and overall assessment of the market if you go back 12 months. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12
No, I'm
months.
just saying like 6 months because you really want to know what's moving.
Yeah,
But 12 months, where people made a mistake and did I got everything in this house drink.
that's right. Yeah, so you can do that for 12 months. If you really want to dive deep in the market, you can have an agent give you a 24-month report. So that'll give you an assessment from where it was 2 years ago, an assessment of how many properties have sold, how quickly it took them to sell, how much they sold for. So that'll give you, you know, a better assessment of what's happening in a long-term view. Okay. But yeah, so when I'm running the comps, I look at actives just to get an idea of where people are hoping to get for their property. Then you take a look at the ones that are under contract. What you'll see there is how long the property was on the market for. That's another component that's important. So let's just say it was listed in the August or October 1st. They'll say active under contract or pending today. You can see that property took about 14 days, 15 days to find a buyer for it. That's important, okay? Because it's your money that's on the line. If it's sitting on the market for day after day, week after week, month after month, you're just paying, if you have a certain type of financing on it, you're paying interest, you know, and you want to limit the amount of out-of-pocket money for your project that you have. So you want to be able to price it right. Then you're going to see your closed comps. Those closed comps will tell you, again, two things, but will tell you a lot of things, but two big things are how long it took it to sell, how it sold, and what it sold for. And the multiple listing system, they can't tell you what the property sold for when it's under contract. That can only be released to the public after it's closed. Okay, so after it's closed, you'll see what the actual sold price is. That's, in my opinion, what you want to base your offer price on, is what's recently sold. You can also search that for rental prices. So for how much a property is renting for. So you'll say, all right, I buy this property, I want to be able to rent it out for $1,500 a month. Well, you want to pull comps of similar properties in the same area, rental properties, and see what the actual rental rates are. You might not see as much in the MLS for rental properties, but you can find that on other sources too. But the actual sold comps of properties that have sold, you can get that in the MLS. That's a good resource. Because here's the thing. Let's just say you find a property, you love it, you think it's going to work out, and you know, it's on the market for $100,000. You do a search, and the search says that there's a few other properties that are on the market, you know, for 110, 150, 120. So this might be priced slightly under market. So that looks good. You take a look at what's recently sold, and you say, well, there's some properties that have sold for 90, they've sold for 85, they've sold for 89, they've sold for just under maybe 10% or so under the asking price, which is a big difference. You want to take a look at what the condition of the property is to see if you putting an offer in for 100,000 or 80,000 is justifiable. Don't ever worry so much about hurting the seller's feelings with the offer that you're getting. You know, depending on the condition of the property, you probably have an understanding of what you're after and what you're trying to do. And what you're trying to do is put some more affordable and market rate housing on the market at the right price while you can still make a profit. So the offer that you're going to submit is going to display that. So, you know, if the right price for you to make a profit and to do the job that you need to do is 80,000, submit the offer for 80,000. You know, if $100,000, if the numbers don't work at $100,000, don't submit an offer for $100,000. You know, be disciplined, and when you're submitting your offers, that way you can secure your investment and make sure that you're going to get a profit on the back end. Okay.
Chris, when we talk about comps, are we talking about comparing apples to apples? So you got a 3-bedroom, comparing it to a 3-bedroom, or can we compare a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom?
Yeah, I like to do apples to apples. So we do 3 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms, townhouses to townhouses, detached homes to detached homes, properties that are in a full rehab to properties that are in full rehab. So that's a great question. Thanks for the setup too.
I know. I appreciate that. The other thing is amenity.
Yes.
You know, you got one that has oil heat, gas heat, central air, no central air. How do you make that adjustment?
If you have a great realtor, they'll be able to sell it. They'll be able to set up the search so that all those amenities will be released on the report that you get. So if you say the property I'm looking at here has gas heat, it has central air, it has you know, sunroof, it has a yard, it has a deck, you will be able to find properties that are that have all those same amenities. I would say if you get too specific, you might not have enough data to make a good judgment. So, but yes, you can get a report based on all those different types of things.
One other question. How is it important, I think you alluded to it earlier, to go on a block and see your neighbors of the subject property you're trying to buy? Because if you have a slumlord next door and you buying this property and you have a vacant house next door, what do you think you're gonna get for the house that you buying?
Yeah, I mean, that's proves the point to make sure you drive the block. Because when you see a house on the MLS or on realtor.com, they'll just show the face of that property, you know? And maybe it's well done and that gives you a vision of what your rehab could look like. But when you drive the block and you say, okay, you know, I don't know about this, you know? So you gotta be careful, you gotta be careful.
I just had a question about how you consider current events in comp. So I had some people say, since the interest rates changed, then there's a look at comps different. Since the tariffs have gone up, look at comps different. Since the shutdown. So just wanted to see how you consider and think about these current events and the political situation.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think a lot of agents and a lot of people in real estate give themselves credit for knowing things that they don't know. So the data that I go on is what's recently sold. You know, in my opinion, that's the most important piece of information that's going to determine the offer price that you get on any property when you're running comps. Because if you're going into if you're looking at properties, let's just say you're looking at homes that you're going to revitalize, renovate, and then resell. So you want to pull comps of homes that are going to be in similar condition to the property once you fixed it and you're ready to sell it. So you're going to look at well done, fully done properties. So you want to see what those homes have sold for, how long it took them to sell, and how much they've sold for. Okay, those are the things you want to see because that's going to give you the indicator of the amount of money that you'll receive. Now, from the time that you buy the property to the time that you fix it to the time that you sell it, if it's 3 to 6 months and there's some world event, that's part of the risk that you run with this type of work. You know, that's sort of out of everybody's control. Does that answer your question a little bit?
A little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, from the time you buy it to the time you fix it to the time you sell it, there could be a lot of things that happen in between. Those tariffs are gonna kick up the cost of the renovation, so you're gonna have to, you know, take that into consideration. So you can just back that into your budget if you feel, I'm always someone that goes by worst case scenario. Always go worst case, that's just me, you know, so because that way I know that I'm always gonna reserve a certain amount of money for profit. So, you know, I always think worst case, always think worst case. That's just the way I think it. Some people disagree, that's okay. Comps, yes.
Within the comps, I also just wanted to ask the class, like, who all here from Chester? I'm married in Chester. Within that, like, where is a good area? Because when we think about comps, we're dealing with Chester. And Chester is more than like desperate right now. So when we're talking to the city, what would they think is a good area because of the comps?
Yes,
Even though there's numbers,
Whoa.
it's not actually the same. You get what I'm saying?
I got you.
We're trying to force it.
Well, it depends on, when I back up with that saying is, it depends on what your plan is.
Right.
It
It
depends.
always go back to us.
It always does. It always goes back to what your plan is. So if you're looking to buy property, if you're looking to flip houses, that's what your focus is. Not so much interested in rentals, you want to flip houses. And if you say, I want to flip houses, I want to make X amount of dollars per flip, you know. So what you're going to do is that's going to be your end in mind. So you're going to look at properties kind of from that perspective. So where can I buy a property at the right price, redevelop it, sell it at market rate or affordable housing prices, and still make that $25,000? And that's when you go back into the overall market conversation and say, okay, where are homes selling right now? What prices are they selling? Where can you afford to buy one? Because that's the biggest component, like we talked about last time. So if you run your financials and your budget says, okay, you can buy a house up to 120,000, well, that's going to be part of your answer right there. You're not going to be buying over here because those are 200. You're going to be buying over here, you know, like 150 and under. So always go back to your budget and your plan and what your vision is for the profit that you want to make per project. So that way you don't get caught up in all these things that you can't control. Because that just really stops you from making any action and making progress. You know, because when you're focused on what your plan is, what your budget is, what you need, and what your mission is, there's really nothing that will stop you from taking action. But when you start thinking about, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? It's just analysis paralysis. You'll never get started.
It's like you holding yourself back.
You're holding yourself back.
Hold yourself back.
Yeah, because I mean, you're scared already, you know, because it's a lot of money at risk. I mean, you know, I didn't grow up writing 5-figure checks for renovations. You know, nobody around me was doing that stuff. You know, so like if you're just getting started with these things, you know, writing that check for $5,000, you know, it can be a little scary at times, you know, until you get used to it and build up the calluses for it.
Well, I think if you do your due diligence, if you do your homework,
Yeah.
right, and you
That's another good say.
I look at a lot of things. New York, for one example, in Harlem, if you look at it in the 80s, it was bad, right? And you look in Baltimore, it was bad. Look what's happening now. I think too many people talk themselves out of situations. I look at it differently. I look at it, okay, I know they want to build. It was a bad area. Property is not going to be as high as it will be probably in Manhattan, right? Or the really good areas, but they develop it. If you got the right people around you, making the right choices, I don't care about the 5,000. It's either I'm gonna spend it or I'm gonna lose it some type of way.
Right.
So why not spend it? And spend it,
Invest it.
invest it, yeah. Why not invest it and I can make money off of it?
Yeah.
And that's how I see it in Chester. And like you guys said in the beginning, it's no competition. It's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
So I went in before the big dogs come, the big dogs. They start opening their wallets.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not a field that I've been in, but there's a lot of knowledge here. And, you know, I'm just gonna get somebody I can attach myself to that have the experience, whether that's you, young lady back here.
That's the whole point of the program. It's like you said,
Move forward.
a lot of times that fear of the risk kind of stops people from taking that first step. So that's why this collective is so important, because everybody's on the same page with a similar mission. To partner you up with somebody that can actually walk you through this process to making that first purchase or your next one if you've done already. Yeah, like having somebody, I mean, for me, I'm like a team person. So, you know, if someone's partnered with me and they're better, I'm horrible at math. You know, like the performance and stuff, I'm back of the napkin. You know what I mean? I want big round numbers divisible by 5. That's what I do. You know, but I have a partner that's just like, no. And she's constantly slapping my hand saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. But she keeps us legal, you know, and she keeps things going. So, you know, having a partner that does the things that you don't do well can give you the confidence to move forward on in the next project or so. Takes some, okay. So you work to make your brain work. Okay. Anybody else questions on cops? I think that's pretty much it.
How could, with cops, I guess with the appraisal, how can you walk them through your home to ensure that they're not, you know, looking over you? And what I'm, you know, to make sure that they give you that right number, rather than just looking at you in the neighborhood and say, I already have a number in my head. Because as appraisers, with them being the gatekeeper, it's that person that's really giving you that number.
Yeah.
So that relationship, and when I'm looking at him, I keep using the word today because it's very subjective. It's not definitive. If I give you all these things, new appliance, new roof, new this, it should be this price. But it's up to this person. So how can I talk to this person in a good way rather than the way that I'm used to? Like, bro, you better give me this because I had what I had. If I give you an assignment, it's up to that person. You know, there's nothing definitive about that. Math is definitive. We can get to the end of it. The pro forma is definitive. But this man walks in the house, whatever when he came in, you know, when I did my refinance, he came in a Range Rover. But my neighborhood is not a Range Rover type of neighborhood. That was the only car that was a Range Rover. So his mindset of what an appraisal is
is different. His environment is different. What he ate that morning is different, you know, but his.
So you're asking basically, how can someone that's not from where you're doing business give you a fair appraisal?
You understand? How can I make that? You did that right.
Yeah. So the only thing I can say is this, that I know. Appraisers have licenses, they have processes, they have databases. And so they have a system that they're supposed to follow when they're assessing a piece of real estate. So if you're selling the house and the buyer has a bank, the bank is gonna come out and appraise the property. Sometimes it just might do a drive-by appraisal. Sometimes I might do a desk appraisal, it means they never even leave the house. So, or they never even leave the office.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So they might just drive by, look at it, yes, it's standing, yes, I believe it, and they'll give it a number. Other times they'll do a little bit more thorough loan, especially if it's a government loan, like an FHA loan or a VA loan, because the property has to be in a certain condition in order for it to close. One thing I can say is there's a process for it. And you have to trust the professionalism of the appraiser that they're gonna walk through the process.
You're a great mentor. When I'm talking to you vulnerably, that's not good enough when we're having a conversation on how I'm able to move. You get what I'm saying? I'm looking right through you and I'm saying that somebody's coming through our neighborhood and they're already here in Chester. So there's a bias form, even if your artificial intelligence computer is telling you everything, you did a drive-by, you saw something that you're not coming.
The one thing you can manipulate is what's sold.
Gotcha.
That's what you can manipulate. So if you have a house, right, you fixed it, you're ready to sell it. You got a contract agreement to sale for $150,000, right? And every property that you compared is similar in price, similar in amenities, like we were just talking about, okay? You can't deny that. Now, if the appraisal comes back and it's wrong and you disagree, you can dispute an appraisal. There's a process for you to do that. But the thing that you can control is running good comps and making sure that you have the right amenities in the property. That you've priced it right. And that way, when it's sold, you have everything documented that just says, okay, this property is prepared correctly, it's permitted, it's zoned, we've gone through the entire process. All the comps suggest that it is this price, so there's no reason we shouldn't be able to close at that price. That's what you can control.
Yeah, I gotta show you my Instagram story and give you an understanding.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying there's only, as a seller or as a buyer, there's only so much you can control.
Right.
And if you don't like the result, then you can dispute.
And then you still gotta pay if you don't like it.
Not if you're the seller. You wouldn't pay for the appraisal.
On the refinance, though?
If you're refining it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
Refinance. Everything was comp 260, 268, 272. He came back 238. I said, bro, you're not leaving this house, bro. Every other house is 260, well, 265. So what? I really gave you the courage to keep going because it's still not definitive. How can I have that? And I went through all of that. So they was like, Shannon, if you want to go through it again, you got to pay $860. For what? For him to come back to my house and tell me what it's worth? When I showed you the 260, I showed you the 260. I have the better appliances. They Samsung, they top line, but you still give me 238.5.
Yeah. Well,
I understand that. That's all mental stuff. That's a professional experience. That's an experience that everything is different. But how do we present ourselves differently? And this is Chester.
Just like I told you,
Right.
you put your best foot forward on the property, make sure it's priced right, and just make sure that there's no reason they should tell you no. As best as you can. And if it doesn't come back your way, you just gotta dispute it.
I would say
That's unacceptable. Where we coming from. That's unacceptable. We don't went through red learning. We don't went through certain things where that's not definitive. To expect that is already saying to go ahead and turn the other cheek. We're not on that no more. So how do we present ourselves correctly to get the number that we deserve? Not to say that I got you. I did business like that. I still take that on the chin. I still made some money. But there ain't no way you're gonna drive to my neighborhood and I know you already got your mindset on the number.
Vote.
that's a different problem.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
We did a systematic portion, which
Yeah.
just put me back at square one again. That's all right. We just do the play and we run the play.
That's it. You can control what you can't control.
Right. And I think the other thing that you can always look at is there's more than one appraiser that's out there, right? There's more than one of anything that's out there. And so you could talk to, this is the perfect thing about Jumpstart, you can talk to other people who have done stuff. So like Will's done, not to put you on the spot, right? But Will has done multiple properties, things like that. He's done real estate all around Chester. So he may know somebody that can help you. And maybe, or maybe not, I don't know. I can't tell. Right, right. So there may be people that, as we're going through this process, they can say, hey, this person is more, they understand Chester a little bit more. They understand what the market is and things like that. And you can kind of work through it and kind of go that way. I wouldn't just pick up the phone book and have somebody from Bluebell come to Chester to.
And you're absolutely
right.
Usually how the refinances come, they pick. The
bank picks, right. So the bank picks, they pick first and all that stuff. So, right. So.
Like, you can't bet them like you do our tennis.
I haven't, in my experience, been able to pick the appraiser. So if you're talking about picking an appraiser, you're not doing that this era. Have you had that experience?
No, like if you're trying to sell a property and you got a buyer and they have a loan, you don't have a choice.
You don't have no choice picking an appraiser. I mean,
if they appraise the lunch before they come to the house.
you can have a gift card. No, don't take them to lunch. You can have a gift card.
Yeah, I'm here all week. I'm here every week. If you didn't get one of these, I got your list. I'll email it to you. I'll email it to you.
Yes, here it is right here. All right, come on. We had a lot of hard questions today, but that's what we're gonna build with hard questions. Bricks are hard. You gotta have those hard questions. There's nothing wrong with that. So first I just want to say I'm gonna be presenting real quick, but I'm gonna be coming from 6.2. So I'm just gonna really run through it because it's really already in your book. I just want to make sure that we verbally take the time to say it. But I also want to acknowledge that the people that have presented are here because they see the vision for what Jumpstart can be and what it can be for Chester. Most of these people been off work already and they took time out. Paul, thank you. He should have been home with his feet up, watching TV. Aaron should have been over, could have been home doing something else. Gary could have been doing the what you don't like to do, showing the house. You could have. Miss Ellen could have been somewhere with her multiple businesses. Mr. Randy, he hasn't presented yet, but he got a biz contractor. He's a contractor. He could have been checking the property, but they're all here because they believe in what Jumpstart can do. So thank you guys. As you can see, 6 points to do in your books. Again, I'm just running through and just making sure we touch a base. So who's gonna be doing this? Yeah, I'm just saying, if y'all don't got the right stuff in your house, that's just what we doing. Y'all gonna be working harder, not smarter. This is what we wanna do. We don't want that, right? Papa is like, I'm gonna eat my spinach and I'm gonna do it the right way. He didn't get his picture, but that's his cousin. Million Wilson. Sorry. All right, so the image, this is what can happen if you don't get the right things in your home. So right here, save yourself and your future resident money. And one of the ways you can do that is to reduce energy and water use. So the benefits is building durability, resident comfort, indoor air quality, marketability of a green home. So I will probably give 2 minutes to my realtors in the house to say what is the benefit, the marketability of a green home, if you can. Just 1 minute after I get done, okay? All right, here I go. Sorry. All right, water conservation. What is the point of that? What does that mean? This is something to think about when you are working in the kitchen, in the bathroom, because they're saying that there should be some EPAs that you should be looking for. And some, I'm sorry, gallons per minute. So as you can see, kitchen is 1.5. Faucet, bathroom faucet, 1.2. Shower head. You heard people talk about those shower heads, dripping and stuff, but that ain't gonna be our issue. And then you see the toilet one. But as you can see, for new construction at the bottom and where you know the sanitary line is in good condition, you can consider a 0.8. So these are things that you can consider, like just the line, the sanitary line can determine what your GPM or GPS could be. Lighting, LEDs. So as you can see, it can make a big difference. The lifespan of an LED is 50,000 hours or more. And then the lifespan of it is eco-friendly, doesn't have mercury in it. Durability is because of the epoxy lenses, and it's safe because it's not, doesn't burn like the iridescent lights. And if you look at the bottom there, 1,000 hours for incandescent light and versus 50,000 hours. So that's a big difference versus 1 year versus 23 years. So these are the things you can think about when it comes to energy saving. Air sealing and insulation, wrap the houses if the ceiling, if it's a new house, you can wrap it, but if it's like, an older house, then you need to seal it up and get all of those crevices and leaky spots closed so that there's no drifting air coming in and out, which would allow cool air to seep out, hot air to seep out during those times where you're using some type of air conditioning or heating system. Okay, sorry, my bad, I hit you. All right, so Energy Star appliances will save money over time. And also one thing is be mindful of the gutters and the downspouts. Make sure they are free of blockage and that the ground slopes away from the building. If that water pools in certain areas, it will seep down and destroy the foundation. So those are the things that you can think about when you're thinking about green building and energy efficiency. This is what you want. You don't want to be burning that money and you don't even realize it sometimes, but that's why I just wanted to make sure that we just touched on it just so that it's in your mind when you're thinking about that Samson appliance, those things like that. So, all right, that's it. That's all I wanted to present just for that, just touching bases on that. So, marketability. Do we have any thoughts about how having the right appliances, the energy efficient appliances, are they looking for that? Are they not looking for that?
Yeah, so I just had a client that I met with, and he had and I'd never seen it before, and I know you guys have seen it. He had it where the Wi-Fi, if he's in a different room, the lights would go off. And, the lights would flicker, and I'm like, well, why the lights flickering? He said because the Wi-Fi signal wasn't working that well. I'm like, oh man, I'm thinking he had a electrical problem. But something like that, is dope, in this time, saving wherever you can. So having that type or having insulation that can save you money from off your heating bill, that's good too. So, marketing a green home, you can, I don't know if it's gonna work where we at, but it might work, in different other areas for sure. And it could work here. I mean, if you just work it.
Yeah, I'd say that the more move-in ready a property is, the better. But when someone's looking to move into a place and rent it, they don't want to see a bunch of problems that they have to deal with. If someone's looking to buy a house, they don't want to see, unless they're looking to fix it and resell it or do, a handyman job and live in it. Most people want to move into the house, talking a lot of money to buy it. They don't want to have to replace a fridge, replace this, replace that, do electrical work. So the more move-in ready and updated it is, the better off it's going to be.
Especially windows. To your point, having newer windows, energy efficient windows is going to save the buyer, and you can say, hey, these are energy efficient windows. Water heater, oh, that's energy efficient, and you'll have that yellow, I believe it's a yellow sticker where it says, energy efficient, and numbers on it that you may not even know about, but just advertising that, hey, that's energy efficient, and then when the appraiser come in that you're mad at, you can say, hey, that's energy efficient, give me credit for that.
Marketing agreement, like having energy efficient appliances and things like that, with that, I used to have the appraiser come in, that would increase the property value.
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to let them know, you're going to point it out. You might even have a big bow and this is energy efficient. You know, the windows, you want to point out, next window of the boat, because I show everything.
Alright, so again, that was all in that section, so I just wanted to run through the verbally announce it and then support that.
One of the other things you want to be mindful of, some of your financing sources, the funding sources, rather, they're gonna tie you to certain energy efficiency standards. I know it jumps up, like in Wilmington, we've got a whole list of things that you have to do, you know, certain windows, where you get certain efficiency. Excuse me. You know, in order to make that build, so you have to have the requirements in order to, you know, to build it yourself.
Yes, we do have to be careful. Again, not trying to get ahead of myself and speak for other presenters, but I think for the first time home buyer program, there may be some criteria regarding efficiency there. But again, we have somebody come in. So we're gonna call this a night. So we're gonna get these presentations. So everybody, if I don't have your presentation, if you can send that to me, and then I will get those converted into a PDF to kind of downsize a little bit and get those sent out to you. So we had a good night, good conversation. So I'm gonna say, have a good night and get home safe.
You're surviving.